Muhammad, then it was written down.
Yeah, but Neil Paul, I mean, as pragmatic, common sense men who have the ability to go on our computers, write a book, and then send it to a printer, and then get it sent to us in the mail. There's a whole process of binding, of artwork, of all these things where bookmaking really was the technology of the time. So
Yeah.
I think that some divine spirit or some super god or some god or some external consciousness to the actual prophet in question, you know, dictated to that person and then they wrote it with a pencil. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, we have to think about how they actually manufactured these things. I mean, I have a book. It's called The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I encourage you all to read it. It's supposedly the first book ever written. Yeah, printed on metal plates. Now, you would think to yourself, like, if you had to create a book or you had to create a pamphlet or a flyer in the case of like a revolution. Now, think about the US Revolution and how the printers at that time used their printing press to conduct the war and conduct the consciousness of the nation. You know, Thomas Paine and then all the letters, and they used pseudonyms or pen names. That's why I say, like, you can come into a lot of Islamic debate rooms and, you know, I'm just telling you, it doesn't seem to me like the IQ is necessarily there. I know there's a lot of smart Muslims out there, but like, if I were to spend a couple weeks, really studying Islam, I mean, I get the feeling that like there's a lot of novices when it comes to Islam.
Zain, correct. Let me ask you. Just a quick question, right? In your when you see the world, non-religion circles, right? Do you think the smart ones are as loud as the dumb ones? Or in your experience, in your reality, non-religious circle, do you think the dumb ones are generally loud and the smart ones are quiet and you hardly see them?
Yeah, for sure. You realize if you're intelligent, you realize expending your energy screaming is not a good usage of your energy. So you
Right,
stop. You
right. So
stop with the
evidently,
insanity.
regardless of what circles you're in, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, whatever, Buddhism, whatever, atheism, the loud ones are always the dumb ones, right? And the quiet ones, they're just too busy to argue all day long. So obviously, you're gonna hear more of the dumb shit just because by nature, dumb people are just. So it's unfortunate that regardless of wherever you go, and if you're hearing stuff from another culture that's not your own, there's a high potential that whatever you're hearing is going to be the worst end of it rather than the best end, because the best end are generally just not involved with that. And if they do get involved with that, it just so happens that the corrupt ones are the ones with the power for some reason, right? So I have no idea why most countries in the world have corruption going on in their politics, right? So why is that? Why are most countries in the world having a tough time with corrupted leaders? Why are the leaders not just selfless? Generally speaking, like, why is that the case? Anyway, Aslan, when you made a claim that Moses is analogous to Muhammad in Islam, but I think I do personally find that there is a lot more attachment there to Muhammad and what he had said or supposedly said rather than actually, I see that same attachment with Jews and Moses. I don't think so. I think Jews revere Moses similarly to how Muslims revere Muhammad, right? I think that's generally. I think that's. I think that there is that. There is this whole concept of blasphemy again, Neil.
Aslan, though, you've Aslan, that's still just your opinion. You have to admit that
Wait,
with
one sec. Let me just at least give why I think that way, right? Doesn't mean I'm right, but at least let me explain why I think that way. Like, Neil, generally you don't see as many Jews for obvious reasons, right? Because like Jews make up I'm not mistaken, something like 14 million in the world, right? Billion people who call themselves Muslims in the world. So there's a bigger sample size of like behavioral differences, But from what I know of how Jews revere Moses, I know from what I've seen that it's very similar to how Muslims revere Muhammad. That's general.
You're making an argument that kind of defeats itself, because the same argument you're making for me applies to you, that probably how many Jews have you experienced. But I do actually have Jewish friends, because I am in Europe. There are still significant. There are still
some atheist Jews
around.
Are they atheist Jews?
There are atheists and non-atheists.
Yes, there are atheist Jews.
No. I'm asking whether Neil's Jewish friends are atheist Jews.
Both.
Okay, Megzed. Okay, I'm just gonna ask Megzed, because since he's Jewish, then I'll just let him be the tiebreaker for now. Megzed, do you think as a practicing Jew, do practicing Jews generally revere Moses, like quite similar to how Muslims would revere Muhammad? Fictitious or not, real or not, true or not,
I would say that it's different. The description of Moses as being revered and special among the prophets is somewhat true. As I explained, the 5 books of Moses sit in a different category of Jewish thought than all of the other prophets. He's sometimes referred to as king of the prophets. They say that when God spoke to him, it was as if mouth to mouth, like face to face. Other prophets who were great in their time were criticized for minimizing the importance of the distinction of Moses' prophecy. But at the same time, Moses is not revered the way Muhammad is. Moses was the greatest prophet, the lawgiver, but he was a descendant of Abraham, of Israel, and Isaac. Abraham, in some ways, is considered superior as he started the whole thing. Moses was the greatest teacher of the Jews as the Jews were there. They were still under the Abrahamic style of living, as clarified through Isaac, as clarified through Jacob, as transformed into Israel and the 12 tribes. Those 12 tribes believed in Israel. Moses taught them the deepest version of Abraham's God.
Okay, gotcha.
What I also see, Aslan, is that the amount of veneration Muslims have for Muhammad, it's almost like worship to me. Actually, in fact, there is no difference between the worship that you might that is discouraged in Islam heavily, but the net result looks to me from outside spectator is the same. There is a worshipfulness on what Muslims have for Muhammad. Because Muslims
Gotcha. Would you say it's more? Would you say it's more than Christians and Jesus Christ, or do you think it's the same or less? More than Christians and Jesus Christ, the same or less?
See, I don't know. Of course, the Christians of today are not the same as the Christians 500 years ago.
No, we were talking about Jews, but and Muslims in comparison. So just compare them and Christians.
Okay, I'll make them simple. If you make jokes on Jesus, the chances that your head would be attached to your neck is still good chances compared to if you make jokes on Muhammad, for example. I think that these sort of things are definitely, and among Jews also, I don't think that there have been many blasphemy cases of acts of violence. Something like what's happened to Salman Rushdie is not that easily going to happen in that now in this century with the present day Christians. That is.
Okay, so what about if people make fun of people's mothers, right? For example, right? So there's like 8 billion people in the world. Out of that 8 billion people in the world, imagine people, a considerable amount of people, let's say we took a sample size, made fun of somebody's mothers, called them like slut whores, whatever, you name it. right?
That happens every day on Clubhouse, man.
Okay.
I don't know which Clubhouse
Okay.
you mean on.
Okay. So
This is
in
like
reality,
every day.
okay. In reality, in the real world out there, how many people get stabbed because somebody made like terrible comments about people's mothers, right?
Listen,
In reality, out there
Atslan,
in the world.
in reality, just opening your mouth on the street can be dangerous. I've seen videos of people saying innocent things to, homeless vagrants that turn around with a knife and slice your throat for even talking to them, even looking at them. That's my point, is all communication is hypnosis, and we are entering into, especially in America, we're entering into, I live in Chicago. There's a homeless crisis, there's a criminal crisis, a burglary crisis, a robbery crisis, a murder crisis, an anti-Semitism crisis, a Palestinian ceasefire genocide protesting crisis. They're blocking our access to our airport. They're surrounding our federal plazas. Like they're everywhere, and they have cars with LED lights saying free, Palestine, things like that, where America is hyper radicalized, and it's only probably going to get more dangerous this summer, especially in August when the DNC convention comes to Chicago. They're limiting protests. You have to have a permit to protest, but the ceasefire genocide thing is supposed to like overwhelm the Democratic National Committee, and the police will have to make massive arrests. So it'll be like a summer of extreme discontent. It could be worse than the BLM summer riots of, I think, 2019 or 2020.
Now I can answer your question about the number of times MF, MCBC, these type of words are used. It's probably every single assault, other than premeditated. Every single time there's a fight and it will start off with these type of words. Then it escalates to the knife, the gun, whatever the assault or murder may be. But yeah, these are the key words. They're the fighting words. That's what starts it off.
Listen, all communication is hypnosis, and I have seen Palestinian Media Watch videos where they've been recording Palestinian media for 20 years now. And this is the root of everything that's happening to these poor bastards who fucked themselves on October 7th by attacking a sleeping lion. They are witnessing the destruction. I mean, wherever they even made their state television broadcasts, it's been destroyed, so the Palestinian propaganda machine is now external. Internally, it's been destroyed, but externally, it's expanding, exponentially. And I even witnessed young Jewish men and women get arrested by the Chicago Police Department in the name of Free Palestine. And there's this one girl, before she kept getting arrested, her Jewish handler, this young 28-year-old, 29-year-old Jewish guy, stared down his employees in his nonprofit and watched her get arrested. I said, "Sweetheart, don't ruin your Shabbos. If your boss and your leader isn't going to get arrested, don't get arrested yourself. You're going to regret it. Don't ruin your Shabbos. Don't ruin your Shabbos." And she kept laughing because she could hear me saying, "Don't ruin your Shabbos." But her Jewish boss, who runs whatever NGO that he's getting money for, watched her get arrested. He watched 50 of them get arrested, and these were his people. And I was just like, I wanted to run up to him and place him under citizen's arrest. Like, I get the feeling that citizen's arrest, if it has legal precedence or there is some kind of power in that statement, like that could be one way to end a lot of bloodshed, is for citizen militias to start doing independent arrests outside of the police department. I think it's an idea. Muxed, what do you say? Will you get arrested if you do citizen arrest?
Depends how wrong you are.
Exactly. So it depends now on the cop who has the other arresting power.
It's always been that way. People pretend that it hasn't. There were I was researching the history of Poland and Lithuania, and I saw the Teutonic Knights. I'm like, what the hell are the Teutonic Knights? Oh, these are like devout Catholics that are just a private militia. They get special lands, castles, and the law doesn't apply to them because they're devout, they're pure. They can just wage war on people because they're not Christians.
Yeah, the Polish people are an incredible people because they're like trapped in between Germany and Russia. So they're like a composite of, two two historical enemies. And I live in a very predominant Chicago Polish neighborhood with Polish grocery stores and restaurants, and man, their culture is incredible, but boy do they love to eat, and boy are they obese and fat. But the youth, they don't eat so much, but by God, it's like a buffet line. Their food is just incredible. And but it's like an ancient culture, like you said, of knights. That concept of knights doesn't go away, and royalty hasn't gone away. I mean, technically, there should be a Polish king and queen. No, there should be a Polish. I mean, there should be royalty in
the
every.
Germans, Poland should have disappeared instead of been reinstated because of Polish favor during World War One. It's part of the justification for invading Poland. It's not a real state. Oh, what? They help you out in World War One, and suddenly we just forget the Napoleonic era? No, we've moved on.
Well, when I did my MBA, after it was all said and done, they put you through a course called How to Polish Your Resume. And I said, Professor, I said, I'm very confused. What makes this resume Polish? And he was like, what? I said, yeah. I was like, what? Why is this thing? Anyways, I got to laugh in the class.
I like the joke.
So, was Muhammad a true prophet, or was he just a prophet, or was he a mediocre prophet? I mean, in terms of being the fact that we're talking about him and that there's a billion people who supposedly believe, in his book, I mean, got to call it a success. No, Mick said it's a publishing success, one of the great of all times, top 10 at least, right?
No.
Are you kidding me? Do you know how many hundreds of trillions of dollars have been tithed to Islamic organizations, and how many people have read the Quran?
I was reading a book about the history of World War II from a military theorist perspective, and he very firmly calls it a failure because he said the goal was to defend Poland, and that lost. He didn't see the revivification of Poland with the fall of the Soviet Union, but in his era, it was a loss. No Poland, you lost the war. Same kind of thing goes with prophecy. If you claim something, proof is in the pudding. If Islam is meant to purify the world, we've already mapped the entire thing. At present, failure. Sorry.
Well, that's why I say it's like the pirate religion. I mean, it stands in opposition, like you said, to Christianity first and foremost, even before any other religion. More than Buddhism, more than Hinduism, more than Judaism, it wages a war against the Christian kings. So it is like piracy, but it's also, in my opinion, I think one of the dangers of it today in terms of popular thought or culture is that you have this Andrew Tate machismo version of Islam, which is extraordinarily toxic, because if you want to look at like male toxicity, it does give you that machismo, male toxic aspect of, feminine subservience and polygamy. So in terms of like Mormonism again, Joseph Smith and all that, and having legal rights to polygamy, and the complications and the strangeness of that, concept. And according to Judaism, I mean, the Blessed Holy Ancient One is only where a man and a woman are united. It's not, the one God of Judaism, or Hashem Ribono Shel is a man and a woman. It is not a man and 4 women or 8 women or a tribe, or a king even. I guess it is, maybe. Anyways, what do you think about that, differentiation between polygamy, I guess monogamy, and then monotheism?
I'm not sure about polygamy. Seems like it goes in and out of fashion. Seems like it's coming back into fashion.
Because people are in all these open relationships. I was just reading an article about a polyamorous relationship amongst 30.
We saw that in the Times, the 20.
Yeah, I was like, this is, and I was reading it. It was said it was all controlled by women, and I was like, well, yeah, women control access to their, vagina. So obviously,
Yeah, the men just come and go as they please. They don't care what's going on. Like their house is clean.
Yeah, I read that article. Yeah, Brooklyn and New York. I mean, that's the thing. It was when you live in a megalithic city, and your life is fully
what about a whorehouse, but exclusive?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's the thing.
That's
Whorehouse.
probably what is meant by Kadesha, the prostitute slaves, like sacred, like still designated, but for like a group, right? That fits for the Kadesha. Right? Why would they call it holy? Because they're still designated. Whorehouse.
There's a very large theater near me called Admiral Theater, and there's a quote by the founder of Hustler. It says, the greatest right any government can afford its citizens is the right to be left alone. Dash, what's his name from Hustler? Larry Flint. And inside this strip club is the first strip club I've ever been in. I think it was 17 when I first went in there, or 18 when I first went in there. But there is a giant winged orb, with serpents wrapping around the caduceus. It's basically a caduceus that sits atop the stage, and then there's these like female like plaster, goddesses or something to the right and left of it. But I just find it so interesting. Do you know what Ahura Mazda is?
Yeah.
That
he's like the chosen one for the fire worshippers of Iran, right?
Right. I think the symbol is the winged orb, but either way, it's a sun with wings, and that supposedly is Hashem or Adonai or Yahweh or Shekhinah, but it's the same.
I don't know. Wouldn't that just be the sun?
Basically, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying a sun with wings. That's just saying like, oh, look how it magically flies through the air, and let's just imagine the wings or explain it. But then, yeah, it's the sun.
But
so
it's kind of a.
What is the great savior of the fire worshippers? The sun.
It's not. It's not just
rises every day.
But I don't think it's just the sun. I think it's the sun and the moon. That's why I say Hashem.
Maybe, yeah.
Hashem is the man and the woman. So that's why everybody was.
Don't forget, they're dualists. They might not talk about the evil god, but maybe the moon is bad.
Well, and there's a reason why everybody looked at the recent eclipse, because it is the combination of the sun and the moon at once, and it creates a black hole, which is a void or a nothingness, and that is technically space, which is your thoughts or meditation. And I'm just saying, to me, God is the all. Hashem, Adonai, Yahweh, Ribono Shel Olam. It's all. It's the all. It's got to be. And so, this is why Albert Einstein, a Jew, and all the theory of relativity and all these things, and gravity and energy. I mean, there's just so much metaphor or interplay between all the world's religions and quantum physics and particle physics and all physics and astrology especially. Astrology to me is like the meat and potatoes of the world's religions. When you read astrological stuff and you see the interplay in all the world's religions, you're like, ugh, every country on the planet, had a science dedicated to solar astronomy and the subsequent zodiac and that type of philosophical system, I believe.
Yeah, they pivoted hard to astronomy.
Who, the Hindus?
The astrologers. You're right. Every state had it. They felt like it was necessary for national security.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. John Dee and Eliphas Levi.
It's funny. It's like they got caught holding the bag with a bunch of astronomical science, and they're going like, "No, we have no idea where this came from. I'm sorry."
Well, what I find kind of funny is like if you look at British astronomy and how the king and queen used their astronomical, court advisors and magicians to help them plan war strategy and political strategy, they basically used their court magicians or their court astrologers to conduct seances or meditations or induce, delta brainwave state, which is relaxation. And they probably had a little cocktail, a little aperitif, and smoked a joint and looked at a giant crystal ball. In the British Museum is the world's largest crystal ball in the world. I think it weighs like 100 pounds, but it's the largest perfect, all crystal, totally transparent ball. It's the largest one in the world, but that's the one that the Queen of England and Dr. John Dee, used to engage in war against the French, against against everybody. I mean, any conflict, that's what I'm saying. It was like the computer of their day. Seances and crystal balls and all these things, that was kind of like a way for them to sit there and meditate on their to-do list and think about the future. And that's what Napoleon is quoted as saying, I don't see the future, but prior to major things, I sit there and I meditate. And then, Napoleon's most famous and biggest magical motto or saying or aphorism or axiom is, I remain silent. I speak only to command. Otherwise, I remain silent. That's his big magic, like, truth.
I mean, that's a good thing for a general and emperor to adopt as a policy. It conveys your speech as magic.
Exactly.
When you do it, things happen.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing about Judaism, is that the world was created with the Hebrew letters, and Hashem just said the words to create the world, to create reality. And that's essentially the metaphor for the power of our words.
That means words like they speak.
Well, how I think I can prove that is that what people say on this app is generally indicative of their internal state of mind or their feelings. Everyone is constantly projecting on this app.
Yeah, they don't have a filter.
Right.
They're using speech to process their thoughts.
Exactly. So this app becomes more of a talk therapy medicinal device, but the problem is there's no therapeutic.
There's no therapy, not house.
It is the modern day sanitarium, but there's no one really doing. There's people facilitating talk therapy. So I guess in some ways there are good facilitators on this app. I can think of a few that create good talk therapy rooms, which are moderated in a responsible way. That's why I say every room on this app is technically a talk therapy app. And did you create this room or no?
Nope.
Yeah. But my point is like whether you created it or somebody else created it, technically the title of this room is irrelevant. It's always technically a talk therapy room because you're going to get a lot of depressed people that want to come in and talk about Islam. So they use the content as a way to boost themselves up out of their low dopamine feedback loop state of mind.
Right. They are being convinced that the content is what is the therapy, when in reality, it's the conversation that is the therapy.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that that's what Abram means, or Abraham, which is technically go?
Sorry, what?
The whole thing about Abraham is like his magical motto is technically, go. I mean, it was, there's something about that name, or I guess it's abracadabra, abracadabra, which is
Lech Lecha.
Lech Lecha.
You.
Huh?
Lech Lecha.
Yeah,
go to you, which doesn't make a bunch of sense.
Is that the saying when Abraham, went out?
Yeah, that's the first commandment he heard from God.
Yep.
Go to you.
Yeah,
This is an interesting kind of an instruction, right? Travel into you.
Right. Okay, so then that's the whole thing about Peniel, where Israel was wrestling with or doing jujitsu with the spirit, or the angel, whatever angel that is, or whether it's God, God itself. I mean, that's the thing about Israel, where it's like, I don't know, people on this app and all the haters, it's like if you knew that Israel technically meant like jujitsu and flexibility and like, this whole your whole movement is anarchical and revolutionary and terroristic and murderistic. Like why can't people see the evil in their own eye when they say free Palestine or, death to America or death to Israel or kill the Jew? Like
They don't have time. Okay, there's an old Jewish prayer that results in peace. The end is peace. And the question is like, what's the value of peace, right? Give us truth. Who cares if it's a war? Why do we value peace, right? And the question is also about the generation of the flood. What's their great sin? What, they were criminals? They had no organization. Just give them insight. They can organize each other. What was the problem? So the argument they say is that peace is a necessary prerequisite to find truth because of the human condition. Humans can't think when they're not in a state of peace. In the case of Islam, they are in an eternal war. They have no peace. They have no insight. They have no minds. Every pause has to be to recover the fight. That's all they're doing, fighting. That's why they don't have any time to think it through.
Yeah, I mean, they're in that catch-22, moment, especially in Gaza. I mean, I think the people on West Bank, probably have hopefully more rationality to think through whatever future violence they're thinking about committing, or same with Hezbollah. I mean, there's something, the difference between Sunni and Shia, and having listened or read a lot of Rumi, is that I get the feeling that the Saudi Arabians, maybe they do know more than they let on, but I get the feeling like there is a cultural divide, which if it could permeate, there would be more, peace and less tension between the Sunnis and the Shias, and that would be an overall good thing. I mean, the conflict in Pakistan, I mean, I guess I've heard things that Pakistan is always going to be the actual nexus of real problems. Like that's where the biggest problems are going to break out. That's what I've constantly heard.
The children of Islam.
But I've met a lot of young Pakistani people on this app and seen documentaries and stuff. They seem very nice and not totally radical, but it does seem like there's these pirate people in the mountains that make all the guns and cause all the problems,
Yeah.
I think Salafism is the main problem. I mean, not all forms of Islam are problematic. Shia can be perfectly peaceful, they can coexist, but it's just this idea that they have to set up some kind of Sharia state, has to be a particular version, and that they can achieve, or they can use violence to achieve it. That's the main problem.
Only Ismaili Shias are not a problem, and they are a big minority. So overall, it's pretty bad.
I think even like a traditional Sunni, like a classical one that follows tariqat, they're not like this. They're not so radicalized. It's this very vocal minority, which I don't know. I mean, are Salafis a minority at this point, or do they have some kind of like plurality or some kind of dominance in the community at this point?
I would say they are a minority, but the regular Sunnis, I mean, it's possible if they're westernized, it's possible that they will coexist with you, but that's just like a matter of them not really getting deep into their theology, them just living a westernized life.
What is the difference between a Salafist and a Wahhabist?
Wahhabists follow a single guy, but Salafists follow the so-called Salaf. I don't know the ideological difference though. There's a guy whose last name is Wahhab that they take from.
So
yeah, I mean they're more or less similar, right? I think just Wahhabi is more of a Saudi movement, right? I mean they kind of like piggyback off each other.
So earlier we were talking about Abraham and Lech Lechach, which is go to you, I think is what Migzad said the translation is. So like I have heard that all the world's religions prophets essentially conduct an operation, or they do an extended period of meditation. So like supposedly I think Muhammad went to a cave or something, and received his enlightenment. But everybody gets their enlightenment essentially through Lech Lechach or Lech Lecha or whatever it is. It's the same technical thing, which is always go within, meaning that, if you want God in your life or you want to have enlightenment, it doesn't come from, let's say, well, I mean, to me, it seems like it comes from the all, because I don't think you can achieve in states of enlightenment without coffee, without the sun, without cum. And that's my point, is it kind of is, it's the all effect, like if you want to experience that bliss or that joy of the spirit, or, get drunk on a Friday night and have a big glass of red wine in your kiddush cup, and then recite a bunch of, Torah or scripture, like that can induce a Mashiach type state of mind or enlightened state of mind. That's my opinion. And it's universal. So it's like, it's not exclusive to Muhammad or Moses or Jesus or Krishna, etc. Like everyone can do it. It's recommended by Jews to do it one night a week.
So you think it's like an ability that we all have, but like the prophet is like an exceptional one?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that the Torah, the true ideas from the one true God, they apply to all of the humans. The Jews are just like the people that revere one guy that they believe communicated perfectly for their community. Not even for everyone else. We think that everyone else can learn by looking at us, see whether or not it works out for us. We are the test case under our model. That's why we are chosen, right? It's an ancient science term.
You guys are the guinea pigs, right?
Guinea pigs, exactly. See whether or not the Jewish strategy works out. We submit ourselves to history.
Obviously, it's working, right? I mean, you guys are...
I don't know. We're still telling our story. I don't know
Exactly.
how long it'll go.
Sorry, it's so windy over here, man. But so, Migzad, what do you do from like your tradition? You do like meditation, or like what do you personally usually?
Yeah, the Jews have prayer, but I would say that my best day of meditation is Shabbos.
But is that actually like, are you doing like a transcendental meditation, or you mean like your prayer is your main form of spiritual practice?
I'd say this. I'd say that prayer is sort of the muscle, training yourself to meditate. But Shabbos is the special gift where the Jews all collectively avoid the distractions, creating a space for meditation, where it sort of maybe even happens by accident or in ways you don't expect. It's a meditative day.
Yeah, I mean, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. I mean, like that.
I try not to pump so much when you say it.
Well, I mean, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. There is no God but one God. Is Hero Israel? There is no God but one God, right? And which is essentially the whole thing about unity or non-duality and dualism. I mean, this is the thing about particle physics and the concept of the all, which Greek and Roman Stoic philosophers were well aware of. And I think that the concept of the all is essentially an enlightened state of mind, which should help you get over an automated anger response system to the obnoxious behavior of, all the people that and all the stupid things that they say all the time. So that's the thing about words, where in the state of mind of, let's say, Moses or Muhammad, etc., where it is like a faith-based mind where you're no longer getting agitated or wasting time. Like you just keep moving quickly. You stop with all the words. And that, when you get to know words, is essentially, that vacuum or that emptiness or the nirvana of pragmatic decision making, of optimization, of focus. Like you said, on Shabbos, you create like maybe an unintentional space where meditation and focus can happen, but it does seem to create like a unity with the spirit, or essentially the God, or et cetera, all these other names. So yeah, I'm just saying it's a state of bliss. I mean, and people do drink wine on, so it's like that helps it helps lubricate. It's called torpor. That's the technical term, torpor, Torpor.
I think there's an interesting bit about like Jewish drinking, how focused it is on holidays when you're not able to do anything. I think that's an interesting way to approach alcohol.
You mean just use it as like a sacrament?
I mean, like...
you tie it into the religious event?
Yeah, it's like separation of Kodesh and Chol, right? Meaning you could characterize it as Chol, but then if it's in the Chol area, that's a dangerous Chol, right? You want that in the designated area where people are safe and good in the most situations, right? That's when you want the drinking. And like the other thing, think about how many holidays there's drinking, and then words get shared, and then things get aggressive. Meaning, it's the regularity and the familiarity that I think makes it safe. I don't know. Maybe drinking is just bad. There's also Shimshon. He did well without it, but then again, he had to kill himself. So, really, what does that teach you about abstinence?
Quick question for you, Mixed. Do you guys see God in terms of divine simplicity?
Yes.
Is it like, okay, so it's not like the way the Salafis, like they have these discussions about God's hand and shit.
No. I mean, like our verses clearly refer to God took the Jews out of Egypt with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, but we do not say that there's a literal hand and arm. Although you can find a Rashi that says Yad Mamish.
Just dualists, right? If I understood you correctly.
I mean, the criticism of Rashi is that he's espousing corporealism, that there's some kind of a physical hand that God can create to literally take the Jews out of Egypt. Whereas, like, you can say simpler, is like the people that refer to God's hand and God's finger are actually idolaters. It's the Khartoumim, the priestly class of the Egyptians, who looked at certain plagues and referred to the finger of God and God. Would you say what's an idolater?
He's having some mic difficulties. Sounds like he's walking through the bushes.
Gotta be sneaky.
So what do you think about Iran's attack on Israel? I mean, did you see any of the videos of the rockets like going off the ground in Iran? I mean, it's a lot of rockets.
I'd say that attack was less about Israel and more about the people who read Iran's propaganda. I think it's trying to
that's a good point.
Calm down the people in the Middle East that are afraid of Israel because of the war they've been engaging in for a long time. It's sort of like a release valve for the propaganda they're producing, which is why I think actually the Muslims on the app felt a lot like bolder after Iran fired.
Yeah, sounds great, Neo. Thanks for your valuable contribution to the conversation. Listen, I do believe that all communication is hypnosis and that listening is hypnosis. So, you
gotta stick with the mantra, man. A man without a mantra is just a truck.
I had an interview once with the State Department to be a foreign service officer, and at the exit interview, they said, "Do you have any questions for us?" I said, "Yeah. Why are you guys emotionless?" I was like, "Why are you guys, uh, acting like robots?" He's like, That's the way we got interviewed, and that's the way we conduct the interview." And I said, they said, "Is there anything else you want us to know?" And I said, "I don't know. A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything." I was like, "Keep smiling. Nothing's miserable." And then they smirked. And but I did not get the job because I think I told them that was a quote by Malcolm X, and maybe that was like off-putting or something. But there
Probably
was,
didn't have.
yeah, there was some woman who had like a PhD. They ran us through like a simulation where you had to like write out an operations report, or basically do some kind of an analysis for like an ambassador and make plans and execute on it. It was like a role-playing simulation thing, but it was more about testing your emotional intelligence than maybe your pragmatic planning ability on the fake scenario that they gave you. That's what I've come to see in hindsight, is they were really trying to see how you played. They were testing you to find out how you work with other people, whether you get aggressive, whether it's like they wanted to listen in on a clown house room. So they created a clown house room with all the applicants to see how people, talk.
Even better, I don't think they knew what they were looking for other than results. They didn't. I doubt they even care like the results on your thing or the other. It's more, is this group together something I can use?
No, this was for a job to be a foreign service officer, which is an employee at an embassy, an international
Yeah,
embassy.
that's why they're machines. You're cogs at that level.
No, they're an intelligence gathering organization, and so they were repeating their non-emotional interview. Like, they don't want to tell you anything about themselves. They don't want to engage in any kind of useless rhetoric or chit chat. It's just they're in suits, and they don't move their lips. They don't smile. They don't talk about anything other than what's on the paper. And and even their offices had, sticky notes with, their names, because it wasn't their offices. It was like a rented office. But it was an interesting interview. But they told me, like, yeah, if you want to apply again, you should apply again. But like, we have people that work here that applied 3 times. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going through this again. So I didn't want to do it again. But it's just a multiple choice test to become a foreign service officer. It's kind of an interesting position.
Foreign service officer?
Yeah.
Why? What do they do? They guard embassies or something?
No, you're just an analyst. You work for the ambassador.
Oh, so you're in the embassy working with the ambassador, gathering intelligence for him?
Mm-hmm.
So you like live a life normal as they come and have a finger on the pulse.
Yep. And you can live with your wife. Yeah, you can live with your wife.
Is a sweet gig. Always a sweet gig.
Yeah. And you work with the Marines, because there's Marines at every embassy. And, you're trying to advance, our ideology, which is, basically business. That's it.
Yeah, I think embassies really could be used to do more good if they were like developed properly. Like, think about the model. We take a building, throw a bunch of soldiers in there. There you go. An American citizen can be safe abroad. Look what we did. And like, come on, man. You can do more. It's American land. Develop something. Make a skyscraper for all I care. Make an amusement park. Make everyone want to see the small piece of America they find in Uganda.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea.
I'm just saying, like, you treat it like a military thing. Think like a freaking religion. It's a church. It's the Church of America. You want to export? Get people begging to come in.
Well, that's the thing, is every embassy is so tied into essentially, State Department functionality, which is really just passport control and that type of a thing, that's their primary business. But I like your propaganda idea about basically opening up a Six Flags or a Disney World at, major embassies around the world. That's a great propaganda idea.
I mean, the truth is, the capitalist systems already are doing it, right? We got Disney. Six Flags, are they abroad at all, or are they just the U.S.?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, clearly Texas. And I love that.
I grew up going to the one.
Find ways to codify their law, their history, into everyone's consciousness. Like, you don't get to not be aware that Texas had Six Flags.
Yeah, I don't know. The Alamo. I mean, I've been to Texas. Like, I was in El Paso back in the early thousands, and like that border was wide open. You could just easily have walked right across anytime, anywhere. Like, it was a nothing fence. But I went to the mall, and everybody spoke Spanish. I couldn't believe it. Nobody spoke English. I was like, wow, this is Texas, but everybody speaks Spanish. Wow.
Occupied.
Everybody seemed happy to me.
Yeah. The complaint of the occupation is from the guys on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, Texas is great. I mean, my friend lives in Austin, in a place called Steiner Ranch, and it's on the Lake
Austin is like mythic in my mind.
Yeah, my friend, he's got like $1 million house, but he just got divorced from his Poopa wife. It cost him $1 million to divorce that Poopa.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I saw him wire her $350,000 in my hotel room. Like, I was staying at this amazing hotel, and I saw him wire her $350,000. And this was a chick he met on a dating app just like a couple years before, you know. And she's from India. She's got this horribly annoying accent, and she is a psychotic bitch. And but you know, things are working out for him. I mean, but you know, it's going to cost him everything. Like, it's, you know, he saves, but not much. But he still makes, you know, 200,000 a year as a CPA, and a, you know, partner in a pretty big low income housing CPA firm. But my point is, you know, you still only get to eat what you kill. Like, he's got to bring in clients, you know. He's got to do real work, but it's big business. These low income housing tax credits and all the taxation and auditing that goes into it. It's a lot of billable hours, and they bill a lot. You know, CPAs make a lot of money. It's amazing that these businesses have to pay for all this compliance. You know,
Why do you think that?
Because it's not like anybody just. I mean, it's the problem with that is it's like, if you look at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, how the fuck can you compete with the establishment when they themselves have to?
The point. The establishment's going to keep chasing you. The pitch of America is that it gives a fighting chance to the entrepreneurs. They're chasing you, but you can run away and you can take over.
It's true. You do have to run, though.
Yeah, you got to run. That's the secret of America. Everyone is running for their life after that gold, and everyone else is chasing it as well. And the tax man is behind you. America.
Yeah, taxation is such. I don't know. I mean,
it's unnecessary. I agree with you. You could do without it.
Well, did you see?
Especially with the modern system. Like, a friend of mine posited a long time ago, he wanted to get rid of all the taxes. Real estate tax, sales tax, income tax. He said he wants one tax, only one tax. They control the currency. Let them print the money. The end. That is the tax. They can chart exactly the changes. None of these like drips and drams of bleed them from here and from there, and they're all hiding at Caymans. No, the money. They control the currency. They already did it, and it's clearly a tax. He just wants all the other ones absolved because they took over the core. Why are we discussing all the others?
Yeah, that's one of these. God damn. You know what's crazy is, like, I have now experienced 2 events in my life this year that has required me to dedicate an entire day to going to a tax event, which is the county and the federal. I've literally had to go to 2 events to help me with my taxation issues.
To listen to Benjamin Franklin.
How can our governments take up 2 to 4 days of our year to just try to figure out how to properly submit? You see what I'm saying?
That's the threat. The time is the threat. It's not the money, not the prison.
Time is money, though. But that's my point, is what you're saying is the truth. The government should value our time.
Get out there and earn, motherfucker.
Exactly. They're costing themselves money by basically tying everybody up and wasting their time.
That's right. That's what they put our money to.
You're right. They should. Have you seen what the debt chart looks like?
No.
It's basically, I mean, it's just a straight up line. I mean, they've already forecasted the debt that they're planning. And if they double the service amount, because now they're spending more on servicing the debt than they are on the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act, which is $1 trillion a year. They've breached that, which is like a historic point of, a fiat production history.
Do you ever read the comic book Watchmen?
Well, I've seen the movie. It's a very good movie.
Okay, do you know the ancient quote, quis custodiet ipsos custodiet?
By what's his face?
It's from some ancient Greek play, but it sums up to who guards the guards.
Right.
And who ensures that America's agreements are maintained when the global police force is America?
Well, see, debt and all these financial instruments, in many ways, it's like upper echelon communication, where it would.
I wouldn't say upper echelon, but you're right. It is communication. It's a style of communication, a somewhat like mystic science of numbers to some degree, especially when they start talking about how much you owe in the future based on the number I gave you today.
Well, look at the Treaty of Versailles, and then how did Weimar Republic fiat, they had to print it up to pay off their debts, meaning that in terms of like fiat fiascos, I mean, the Weimar Republic is basically the perfect, I mean, they went through the Zimbabwe moment, no? They just printed, without ethic. You see what I'm saying? Where so, I mean.
I applaud the printing without ethic. That makes sense.
I agree.
If someone tells me I owe them 1 million pieces of paper that I print, I'm going to print all the paper.
Yeah, it maxes out the system. It gets essentially
like what? Germany lost World War I? Fuck you! Everyone lost World War I.
Well, what I'm saying is like in Zimbabwe, when they maximize, or like Argentina, where they have runaway inflation, what they're really like, what you're saying is true, meaning that they control the currency. So. It is the taxation. You don't need taxation systems. You just need currency manipulation.
Think of it this way. What America could simply do is phase out the dollar. Just like declare, as of 2025, it's now the dueler. It's a dueler now, not a dollar. And all of those dollars that you have, we're going to print them all. We're going to print every single one, pay every single one of our debts. And guess what? Every debt that happens from now on, global currency is the dueler. What can you do? You guys can stick to the dollar if you want, but we're not going to print any. So that's going to be like a rare commodity if you want. We're going to be using the duelers, and all of our trade partners will be using the duelers. Have a nice day. Right? You can do whatever you want. It is just fiat. Well, that's why the Jews had Jubilee in a calendrical cycle. They had debt forgiveness as part of it. I'm pretty sure that debt is not sustainable amongst humans because they always are optimistic about their abilities with like an invested future. They think the future will be rosier than it is. Sometimes they're more right than they thought, which is why we lend out. Still important to do. But on like a large enough scale, most everyone is wrong. Most everyone just pays back more than they owe. And that's not useful to anything, which is why you need to have a regulated system that calls it all clean at some point. You don't want debtors' prisons, and frankly, I think bankruptcy courts are all of the bureaucracy you're afraid of.
So this is kind of an interesting topic of Roman financial corporations and how they existed, what they did, and the number of employees. I mean, basically lending houses, but still very advanced mathematical financial organizations operating within the Roman Empire, within the political, within,
You need the debt forgiveness. That's the thing. If you really like hold to the math and you bind the humans with that, they will destroy you. You need regular debt forgiveness because the humans will consistently be wrong.
I mean, if you think about it, it's just a release mechanism. It's a pressure valve mechanism. It's a kettle pot.
More than that, it's obvious that debts only need to be repaid because of a law.
Yeah, that's true. I have this one book, because I'm going through this this lawsuit thing and maybe bankruptcy. It's called Don't Pay, Can't Pay, Won't Pay. It's like a book on not paying debt.
Yeah, you got guys like that. real like diehards.
Yeah, I haven't read through it, but like I'm interested in the message or the hypnosis behind it to reinforce my own position.
Right.
But yeah, nothing has happened. They still haven't garnished my wages, and but even
They're
if
coming for you. If you do nothing, they will come for you. You have to fight the dead man.
no, they're coming. I mean, they're gonna eventually. I'm gonna get an internal email eventually saying, "Hey, you know, we've processed this, and like you're now being deducted this much each month." I'll be like, "Fuck, all right." So, but that's when I'll start modifying or making other changes to my own life. But I can live with the forced wage garnishment. But in terms of them getting access to my bank accounts, I don't think they can. And that's, you know, I could be wrong, but it's not they're not business accounts, and they're not accounts tied to a business. So I've listened in on the courtroom and, you know, what the lawyers and what the judge is talking about. And it always does seem to be tied to a business where they're able to seize the bank accounts. But in terms of individual seizing, I don't think they have that power to do that at the state level. But I could be wrong. But we'll find out.
To take your bank account?
Yeah, to take my checking accounts.
They could levy a lien.
But a lien isn't going to be a seizure. You see what I'm saying? A lien.
No, a lien will stop you and others from like using. Well, it might not stop you, but it might stop others from putting stuff in the account.
Oh, nobody else is putting stuff in the account. What I'm saying is they can do these liens, but that is only a lien against my estate or in the event of some type of, you know.
Yeah, they can chase you. They can chase you forever. That's what the lien is. It says
exactly,
it's a good piece of paper that I can show up to anyone that's associated with your money.
Yeah.
And tell them, knock it off. Give it to me first.
I know. So I have this property, and if I ever go to sell it, I'm up 100 to 150,000 in equity. They're going to be first in line, and I will walk away with nothing. And that's the only thing I really have, other than, you know, some basic checking accounts and brokerage accounts, which is, you know, 20 grand. But I don't think they can seize that. I think that my point is they're not communicating with me anymore. But the only way I'm going to reach back out to them is if my employer garnishes me, which could be, you know, imminent, but we'll find out. And I'm not worried about it. Anyways, you know, I enjoy religious conversation and talking about, you know, comparative world religions. I think that that's in one way to, like, you know, help resolve a lot of conflict. But what do you think about people, especially atheists, that, you know, particularly atheists, in terms of psychological inflation, deflation, depression, mania? What is it that a self-professed declared atheist, like, I mean, when I look at Christopher Hitchens drinking his, you know, Campari and smoking cigarettes and, you know, debating, you know, religious people and saying that they're delusional and that they are superstitious and there is no God, like, there's times where I can listen to Christopher Hitchens and I'm like, yeah, like everybody is essentially psychotic, delusional, and LARPing. And they're role playing, but like there's still wisdom within. So like Christopher Hitchens is just like the ultimate nihilist, where if he doesn't talk about the other things, it always becomes the Christopher Hitchens show. So, you know, that's my point, is like if you can't really have like a very wide range of topics or books to really go off of, it just becomes like the Christopher Hitchens publishing business. It's not really. Maybe it is scientific, or they're just saying all communication is hypnosis. It's like reading a book is not like having a remote control in your hand. You know, it's not technology, it's mental technology, and it's like logic, you know, reformulation, or we're trying to like get to the truth. But I'm just saying that when I listen to an atheist, like a good atheist, there's times where I can say, oh, okay, I can actually make, you know, maybe all these religious people in the world really are delusional or on the spectrum, you know, or they're just propagandists, or they're not being truthful. I'm just saying that, like, but still it does come down to the concept of, I guess, God, or the Zeus God or Thunder God or Yahweh God. Like, is it real, or is it just a communication? You see what I'm saying? Like, is it just spoken word? Is it just a book? You know, I guess the whole thing that I've heard a rabbi say is at Mount Sinai, there's 200,000 witnesses. So that's the legal proof. So is Judaism all based off of that legal precedence then, and then but you have to accept that as faith, as a faith-based type of thing. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. Why can't a rabbi admit that the 200,000 at Mount Sinai is still a faith-based concept in the now?
That's a faith-based concept. I guess you could say it's faith-based. It seems more reason-based, because think about it. A true faith-based claim is it's true. The end. I believe it. When you're putting in complexity of secondhand information, mass conspiracy, firsthand knowledge, secondhand knowledge, you're trying to engage in reason, trying to prove it. I wouldn't call that faith-based.
Well, I mean, I can enjoy the game that the atheist plays about debating God, but I think the great irony still is by playing the role of the atheist or the negative or the black to the white of the atheist, you're still essentially actually helping the theist.
Yeah, they're creating a contrast.
Right. Without the contrast.
That's why you see atheists act differently when they come from different religions. They're contrasts to their native culture.
But I don't see it in their religion. I see it in their culture, meaning that it's like if we were to just, let's say Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Jewish, that's not technically the way that I can observe some religious atheist religious category atheist. Like it always comes through in their culture or their demeanor. But anyways, it doesn't make a difference. The point is, the machismo Muslim is always the dangerous terrorist, because that's technically, it is basically like a wolf and a lamb. I mean, you have to look at, it is profiling, but it's true, so I don't know. Profiling is not controversial. I mean, I think you got to go with profiling, right off the bat all the time. I mean, I'm just so observant. I take the train all the time, and man, I can't even tell you how aggressive people can be on the train. And these homeless people, I was filming a guy shadow boxing this giant 300-pound trans guy with fake titties and wearing a skirt, and him and his girlfriend ran off the train. I couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't believe it. It's like a giant trans man getting accosted by a homeless drunk black man shadow boxing in his underpants on the train, and it was a trans goth guy wearing fishnets. I was just like, man, what is wrong? And he had fake breast implants. I was like, I can't. Oh, have you ever seen a man at the beach now with breast implants? It's unbelievable. It's like the funniest thing you've ever seen. I've seen it now. I've seen it now a couple times, and it's very funny. It's the funniest thing maybe you'll ever see, because you can't believe your eyes. You're like, because you see.
What do you suppose is because of that? What do you think is making people alter their appearance so drastically?
Availability, and then obviously just brainwashing and mind control programming. But I do think that it does have something to do with the trans ideology, which is kind of the Shekhinah, or feminine aspect of the deity, meaning that a man is trying to transcend gender, and gender being one of the maxims or aphorisms. And so they're technically, they want attention. They want to troll. And it's just so funny seeing a man with tits, and in the distance you're like, oh my God, that chick has her top off. And then it's you squint, you're like, oh God damn it, that's a man with breast implants. And you're like, I can't believe this. Can't believe it. It's just the funny, it is very funny, but he's looking at you because he thinks that the whole quantum mechanic aspect of a man with tits at the beach is the funniest thing in the world, because he's a gay guy. You see what I'm saying? So it's the fragmented reality, in 2024. And I mean, I think it's probably always been there, because bearded chicks has always been a thing at the circus, and now there are bearded chicks. I saw a video of a girl, there is a Reddit channel called Trans, and you can see all these people that have done puberty blockers and how they get dressed up and try to look pretty and shit. And it's a mind fuck, because it's rural America, it's somebody in Nebraska some guy named Tom who is now dressed up and he calls himself Sarah. And he's on Reddit. Like, it's a clout chasing clown outfit LARP troll. It's just like the Caitlyn Jenner thing. It's all about
Okay, but what do you think causes it? Why are people
I think there's a business aspect to it because people want to monetize on their
I think it's clothing.
You think it's clothing?
Yeah, you remember the first story? Like, the first thing that happens to the humans when they gain the ability to determine between good and evil? Very first thing, cover themselves up. Nakedness features heavily in the first narrative.
But that's still just a metaphor. That's concealing your true... No, that's about concealing your true identity.
Okay, let me ask you this. With all of our atheist scientific advancement and technology, why can't we be naked? Huh?
Well, you can be naked, but you can't do
You absolutely cannot.
No law in society now lets women bare their breasts in public.
Not true. They will be stopped. And the reason is because it is distracting to the human. The human is not an angel. The human is an animal.
No, there's cities that have passed those ordinances.
Get this. The human is also aware that they are more than the animal. Even though they're looking at someone else's flesh, they know that that person is looking at their flesh. They don't want to be judged by their flesh, so they don't want to judge others by their flesh. So they all agree together. Nobody looks. And then we can finally focus and think. Now, what's interesting about that is the dynamic. There's a tremendous amount of fear and game theory developed within the inherent sense all humans have that we need to cover up. And I think that causes a lot of stress, especially the more you interact with people, because they're judging you and you get concerned about your deep, true self and the appearance that they get to observe. Gaining control over your appearance is one of the ways people process that anxiety. I think that, the transgenderism, the piercings, the tattoos, the body augmentation, all of it is trying to process something they feel uncomfortable about people that see them.
No, I agree with that, but I think the thing in the military, though, based on uniform standards, personal hygiene, conduct, decorum, military order, supremacy within the military, superior officers, like that whole trans activity in the military is so trollish and destructive to overall morale that it has to be smashed out and obliterated. There can't be trans soldiers in the military because it's not like, a school environment or a work environment. It should hold that sacred place where, trans ideology, trans representation and action cannot be tolerated, and so that's my only,
It doesn't exist because when you sign up for the military, you sign up for your outward presentation to reflect the country. You don't get to be an individual in the military.
But you can in the military. And do you know Starbucks, if you get a job at Starbucks will pay for your trans surgery? It's so crazy. It's in their insurance policy. It's in their...
I love how rabidly capitalistic Starbucks is while being such a progressive.
It's so bizarre, and people want to work there because they want to get trans surgery. I was reading a Reddit thread about all these people.
They have like a socialist ethos about encouraging the workers to join. They're like, we'll give them benefits and pay them nothing. It'll be perfect. The utopia of coffee. Honestly, I'm surprised Karl Marx didn't think about it. Guy was addicted to caffeine.
There's a cannabis dispensary near me, just a couple blocks away, and they have 2 trans employees that work there. And one of the guys that is trans, like he has like little itty bitty titties, and he has a beard, and he wears makeup, and his fingernails are all done. And like he's taken my order twice, and each time like I try, like I'm always repulsed, and when I leave, I say, "Oh, I'm never coming back here again." Because I'd rather go to the normal place where there's like college looking bros working and like a hot chick. But at the same time, like I do believe in the concept essentially of compassion, or knowing that the expression is that everybody you meet is on a more difficult journey than yourself. So when I see that guy working behind that cash register, like, I mean, I have to have compassion for that person, knowing that like even that transaction was like highly significant for that person's life. Like it was. I mean, I'm that customer who gives that person a job so he can pay his rent and live that like that clown life, which is not an easy life because people are going to look at him and hate him and be repulsed by him. So it's like, what is his perspective? It has to be anarchical, political, obviously, like, I'm just saying, like, he's a revolutionary radical, but at the same time, he's not really, he's not like a Black Panther, or he's in his own category. I see. The thing is, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, maybe he's a mystic and you can't have that conversation with him. Or maybe what I'm saying is, I guess what I'm saying is, I think a lot of these trans people don't realize is that if they should become mystics, and that should be their rationalization for what they're really doing. It shouldn't be because they're gay. Huh?
They will eventually. People are predictable animals. All the atheists just try to ignore their animality.
I think just, I think that maybe you're right in this, or they already are essentially Satanists, or they are technically mystics. And basically, I mean, I don't think you have to read much into, mystical trans ideology.
Church, they need time, and they're doing it in a very disorganized, anarchic fashion because, they were taught Christianity. But they're getting it together. They will coalesce.
Okay, well, now I have one last observation with regards to this. I would say that there's probably a 99% correlation between individuals who do trans surgery and social media presence, meaning that there's
Right.
like a 90, they're not private. It's performative. It's like 99% performative. So from that that's why I say you think it's a clothing issue, and I know you're making like a religious metaphor, but I say it's business. And to me, it's like, how do you differentiate yourself, and how are you any different from millions of people? Oh, well, you have to milk your prostate, and you have an Instagram where it's trans all the time. This is the whole thing about Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney has not snipped his cock. You see what I'm saying? Like, he's the probably the bigger, the better, and the most successful version of, until he cuts his cock. It's like, I guarantee you, if he cuts his cock, it'll be like a media event. His trans operation will be like a $10 million pay-per-view event for him financially, if he's got the balls to cut his fucking dick off. Like, but just think about the suffering. Like, this is the thing, is it does approach like the religious suffering aspect, where people whip themselves and, put them on a cross. That's it. Was Muhammad a true prophet?